And welcome, one and all, to the PCS Week 5 of the Spring Split 2022. We are getting ever so close to those playoffs. I cannot wait to see which teams will emerge supreme, which teams will make that top 8 and fight it out for the top spot in the PCS. Hey, everybody, I am Devin Pyrotechnics Young. I'm joined by Clement Chu here on this broadcast today as we get into it. And, of course, our sponsors are CTBC Bank and Caliber. Thank you so much for making the PCS possible. Now, Clement, we have got our normal set of games. It has been a little up, a little down the last couple of weeks. We have had a couple of ongoing situations that have made it difficult to keep the regular schedule together, but we are finally back with our 5 games a week, and we have certainly got some real whoppers based on what happened last time around.
Oh, yeah, the games are really starting to heat up, and we are heading ever closer to playoffs. Right now, we already have 3 teams that have secured their slots in the postseason, and the rest are looking to clamor up. There's still 5 more slots open. We'll find out a couple more teams who is going to make it in today.
Absolutely. Now, those teams you're talking about, I believe that's PSG, Deep Cross Gaming, and, of course, J-Team, who managed to secure themselves a spot, not in necessarily the top 2, but, of course, in the top 8, which is all you need to make the playoffs. It is absolutely a stacked playoff bracket, very forgiving by a lot of LoL Esports standards, but it does mean we get to see even more postseason play, and I think that is well worth the price of admission. Now, of course, we'll start getting into today's games, but in particular, I know I closed out last week with Mr. Nice. Or anything that really stood out to you as we start to get ready to transition over to talking about last week's games?
Well, I definitely like that we saw a couple good top lane performances right there. Leaky, of course, was a standout. And I also like that Jax coming out from Driver. We kind of forget about him as a fighter player, but he definitely propped up Type J team's chances, and now they're sitting at 9 wins. The magic number is 9, of course, as that puts you out of reach of Hurricane Gaming. We only have 6 games remaining of the split, so once you make sure that you're out of reach of Hurricane, that means you're into the playoffs, and that's what we're going to be looking at today, whoever can get to that 9-win mark.
It's very consistent, very nice of Hurricane to volunteer themselves as the benchmark for everybody to try and judge themselves by. We'll see if they can maybe add some wins and force that onto somebody else. But at the same time, you're right. I do want to definitely shout out some of our top laners. Driver, that Jax was a team fighting monster, and that's not the type of thing I'm used to seeing with the Jax in any league whatsoever. Other players, of course, that have been stepping up into the role. Everybody knows Hanabi can be a top lane monster, but how about Leaky on Deep Cross Gaming as well? One of the surprises, though, is seeing CFO in 4th place. The team did not have a good week, really only picked up 1 win, and I almost hesitate to ask, is it a knee-jerk reaction to say, have they been #exposed?
I think they have been. If you think about most of the CTBC games, what they've been is dominating through an early game lead. They were up over 4,700 gold at 15 minutes in their prior weeks. Going into the last week, however, the early game looked a lot worse. I think a lot of it was about compositional issues. They were running just inferior comps, inferior late game comps, and expecting to coast through.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of Leaky, we talked about him a little bit earlier. He will be our player of the weekend. You only need a couple seconds of footage to really see why. Here's one of those fights up against Beyond Gaming where he had a monster of a Gwen performance.
Absolutely disgusting stuff from him. We've been talking about his laning phase for quite a while, and it's still true. He has the best laning phase stats of any player in the PCS. A lot of help from Hana, but also this week, I think it really showcased his team fighting prowess. Just his knack of understanding when he should be going in, when he won't be focused, getting maximum damage off. And I also want to keep on praising him for another fact. It's just that he still is very much a sort of a toolkit kind of player. He's played 8 champions so far, which is the most of any of those top laners in the PCS. So he definitely can just pick whatever he needs for his team. We saw the Malphite in a losing effort, but I think still very telling of his mentality on his champion pool, and of course the Gwen hyper carry, the Gwen save the game moments that he had earlier was also very impressive. So I think this is definitely a young player. He came from J-Team's academy team and has really shown up to be kind of a diamond in the rough. We have never heard J-Team or anyone, to be honest, really mention him as a player, but coming into this split, I think he's had a very unique style, but also being just overall excellent.
Yeah, he's had a lot of chances to, or he's had a lot of rosters he's been on, and even of course some time over in the LPL with Rogue Warriors and RW Shark for a little while, but never really got much of an opportunity to really showcase his skills. And I'm so happy that he's found a home here in the PCS in his home region. It's beautiful to see. I think the door was open for him, but he was in the right position to knock it open, and he has stepped up massively. Not the only one on that Deep Cross team, too. I think I want to shout out Kriskata as well, who I believe has also earned a Player of the Week. This Deep Cross squad certainly has deep talent.
Love the pun right there. And this is why they're one of our top teams. It's because not only do they have a core of veterans, utility players, but the biggest questions that we had for DCG is where are their carries going to come from was actually answered. The rookies stood up and they actually were able to carry the kind of veterans that were facilitating this team. Going back into the bans and picks, I think we're going to see very similar things. These two graphs, I love that they're put into this juxtaposition because they're very closely linked together. When you have Zeri and you have Gwen running around the map, blue side has a massive advantage in terms of drafting phase because you have to take away the Gwen, you have to take away the Zeri, and that just leaves you with very little to actually counter out enemy pocket pick, and that's why we see the blue side having a massive advantage at 73%.
Yeah, it's huge, really, and not just in this league. I think we have been seeing that in other parts of the world as well. One thing I do want to shout out, rip to Zeri's 100% win rate when it gets through, because Blaze had a bit of a roughie on that one last week against Meta Falcon team. Unfortunate, but all the same, still an incredibly powerful pick when it gets let through. Gwen continues to be a powerhouse in this league. And of course, you know, we know that Jinx has a very, very high win rate, much more preferred of the two of them. I kind of get a feeling that Aphelios is starting to not be deprioritized, but people are starting to realize that there's definitely a clear winner in the handshake there, just with the pop-up potential that a reset champion like Jinx can allow. Xin Zhao and, of course, the Nautilus continuing to be very strong in their roles. It's kind of cool. We see everything but the mid lane represented in our high ban pick, and it just shows how the meta has really shifted up this year.
Yeah, I think the meta is really just a couple of peaks of those super strong picks going dotted here and there. The Gwen is, of course, one of them. Another couple of them in the jungle. I would say Diana is still very popular in the PCS. And if we compare ourselves to other regions, I think the top lane red side last pick just hasn't been utilized as strong. If we look at the LPL, they actually have a red side win rate bonus right there, and I think a lot of it does come from the fact of how aggressive those top laners are, and that's something that I hope players like Leaky can shake up. You know, if Driver is able to last pick a Jax to great effect, if Leaky can come out with an Urgot or a Malphite to just smash his lane opponents, then maybe we will see tilt more towards the red side, and especially for that top side matchup.
Yeah, maybe we do. You know, I think coming into this split, we were looking at the relative talent and how many newcomers there were in the league, and there were so many questions that we needed game footage to get answers to. And one of those was, hey, what is the level of top lane in the league right now? And I think we got an answer. It's good. Like, we lost a lot of top talent. We also got to see some really, really hype players, some new kids come in and tear it up. We got to see some old faces still doing good. I mean, like, it's Hanabi's league, but everyone else is doing a pretty good job of stepping up into it, I think. And even though there is a lot more prominence on the bot side of the map, we've seen some top carries come out. But let's talk about today's games here, Clement, because we are going to be opening up with Deep Cross Gaming. They'll face off against an Impunity squad that has had some struggles of late. Maybe they can get a bounce back, but oh, it's a tough test to take. After that, CTBC Flying Oyster will look to bounce back from their last week against Hurricane. And then we get into what I think is going to be a surprisingly close game between Frank Esports and Beyond Gaming. That one is a tale of two teams going in, at least to some extent, to some degree, opposite directions.
Yeah, I think the best games today are definitely Frank and Beyond Gaming, and then PSG and JT. Those are kind of my games to watch. Frank is on the up and up. I feel like Pretender right now is just kind of a plus version of Minji. He's showcased his assassins, and I have to say, I would take his Vex performance over the one that we saw from Minji a little bit earlier. And finally, on the last match of the day, we have to tune in and see if PSG can keep this win streak going. They have the longest win streak of the entire league right now at 11 wins. They had this 3-game stretch of just absolutely decimating all 3 of the JT spawns to now take the top spot.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to see. I mean, we kind of got the opposite last time around where they almost had the perfect split, stumbled at the end, had some very, very close games to make it towards the top of the PCS into Worlds. But we'll talk about that when we get into that match today, because we're starting with Impunity on the blue side today. They are Quiet, Taco, Faith, Blaze, and Pinway. And I know I've talked about how Impunity had been on the improvement train and then kind of dropped off a little bit. I also think that where this team has shown talent has shifted a bit too. I dare say have a little more faith in the mid laner than I did in previous weeks, because he's shown that he can actually put on his carry pants. It just isn't enough to win games, and that has been a struggle. I want to see Blaze step up a little bit more. You know, if you get Zeri and you can't carry, you're having a hard time.
Yeah, I think Impunity has showcased really good fundamentals, good macro. It's just those mistakes again and again that kind of bite them in the rear. We saw Blaze with the Zeri just kind of getting sniped out by Wen over and over again against MFT. That was a pivotal game for them because they were neck and neck in the standings. Unfortunately, Impunity were winning 37 minutes into the game, and it was one team fight that they lost. So it definitely feels really bad. Hopefully, they will find some coverage against Deep Cross Gaming, which is... Interestingly enough, I think they're one of those teams that if you just take a straight up team fight against them, I think your chances actually go up. They're a team that play a lot of shenanigans, but if you can actually offer a strong mid jungle and a strong team fighting, then we have seen DCG kind of flounder just a little bit in the mid to late game.
Hey, that's absolutely a viable strategy. We've seen a couple of teams be able to upset that apple cart, but for Deep Cross, this is talent. From top to bottom, right? You know, we've seen Leaky step up. We know what Hana can do from years past. Nesty has a proven, if unorthodox, track record. And Kriskata is, in my opinion, the hottest rookie on the block. And of course, Woody, definitely solid player to round out this lineup. And, you know, I think they've well earned and cemented themselves as the #2 team in the league until proven otherwise. This is a squad that, you know, they've come out on top in the J-Team Spawn Rumble, and if they can keep it going, even splitting a record against CFO, I think this is the team to beat that's not called PSG talent.
I have to agree with you. I think going up against DCG, the most important thing is just to play your game. Because DCG, they have too many weird picks. They're willing to go completely unorthodox. And we saw that last time when they were going up against semi-Pocomp. They just go, okay, we're going to go full engage, Hacker and Malphite. We're going to slam into champions and just try to counter you. So I think when you're going up against DCG, you have to kind of expect that your composition, they're always going to find an angle to attack you with, and you just can't just try to ban out too many picks. I feel like going against DCG, just play your best stuff. Don't worry too much about the counters. They're always going to find a way to counter you compositionally. It's just about you getting yourself together. And one way they could do that is definitely going to be through Quiet. Now, the Quiet versus Leaky matchup last time, I actually felt was quite interesting because Leaky didn't outright beat Quiet in lane. Quiet actually had a couple of good shots here and there, especially with some of these Jace picks. But the fact is, I feel like the jungle importance here is absolutely massive. Hana is, I think, oversizing Taco in a lot of categories. So we're going to have to pay close attention to how this one happens. GDF 15, that's the biggest indicator right there. Leaky currently best laner in the league. I have to say this again every chance I get because he's really an unlikely candidate if you were talking about the start of Split.
No, you're right. I think he's been one of the many pleasant surprises on the DCG side. This is a team that came in with a game plan, that knew what they wanted to do, and they've definitely taken the league by storm. And yeah, we kind of have the pieces of the puzzle coming together there. It's not just lane phase, even though that's where he looks really good. Quiet is going to have his work cut out for him. And for Impunity, they opt to ban the Zeri blue side this time, and they also throw out an Akali ban. That is something that we haven't actually seen picked by the DCG side, so maybe this is something coming in from scrims.
Yeah, very interesting here. The Zeri ban, of course, is something that we talked about. It's never a good sign when you ban the Zeri on blue side. We don't have Draven players really in the league, so we'll see how this goes. But Impunity, as we've said, statistically, they've only won on Jinx, so they're just going to run back to their old strategy again. And I think that gives DCGs just a lot of outs. They understand how Impunity like to play their game. It's basically a catch and gill, very high mobility. It's usually some sort of semi-global comp where they try to throw all their members into a side lane at the same time and try to roll off of picks. So I do expect DCG to pick things that are quite defensive, like, you know, the Tom Kenches could be coming out, and just kind of some of the tanks might be popping up in the top lane. That's usually how people have played against Impunity.
Yeah, and you can see that there's a lot of focus on banning out some top lane champions, just given the fact that it's blue side, you can give some of those things away. So focusing on Quiet, Tom Kench actually gets taken away here, as Pinway has shown at least a little bit of preference towards it. And I was wondering if Deep Cross would just go for the Aphelios handshake when they have shown Xayah Rakan before, but it does feel like it is a bit too good of an opportunity to pass up in the hands of Kriskata. Of course, he's played that champion a number of times, got 2 wins and a loss on it so far on the split as we enter ban phase 2. So far, pretty standard picks from Deep Cross. You talked about how Impunity, in order to win, should play their game. Well, it looks like they are on track to the type of game that they are well familiar with.
Yeah, they do have this sort of slow team fighting composition that we've seen a couple of times. It was dismantled pretty hard by PSG, but it's definitely there. They can still play around in a much more standard comp, and that's why they're sitting at 10-2. They're not just like a gimmicky one-horse pony that's coming in. Impunity on the other side, we know that they're trying to run reset. They already have the Viego and the Jinx for it, so banning away the Galio and Ahri really goes in line with what we said about their identity. They're just about attacking side lanes with all of their members at the same time. You're taking away high mobility here. And I feel like Impunity are trying to do the same thing to DCG. They see this Hecarim and they're trying to say, okay, we don't want those hard engage options that can go alongside with it. We always want to be the ones that are in control of the initiative here. So they're just taking those away. And I actually really like the Renata pick here.
Yeah, that ain't hard engage.
Yeah, we've been talking about this ever since 12.4. Renata is probably the best counter engage support that you can have. If the entire enemy team is trying to rush at you, then what's better to just make them hit themselves?
Yeah, you know, I gotta be honest with you. This is the first Renata lock-in I'm actually hyped for. And it's not just because Woody is a good support. It's because it actually fits the comp and what it's trying to do.
And a huge part about Renata is we actually seen it pop up against the Tahm Kench matchup. You know, Tahm Kench isn't like those Leonas or Nautilus picks where they can hard engage on you and force the gank easily. Tahm Kench actually has a very long W cooldown, and it gives Renata a little bit more survivability in lane where she can just kind of poke you. We've talked about Renata in laning phase. She's kind of awkward because she loses to both extremes of the enchanters and the hard engage champions. But against Brahms and Tahm Kench, that she actually has a very decent matchup in lane. And we are going to get Faith going back to his assassins. This is a fun one. As we said, you know, DCG have looked the most lost when their mid-jungle can't really operate and roam across the map. So if we can have Taco and Faith here getting that 2v2 win, it still could snowball Impunity.
Yeah, it's a lot of possibility there, and I think they have a lot of power. They have a decent set of scaling champions because Faith, if he can get off to a flying start, if his roams can connect, and I mean, who knows if he can actually get Nesty on the back foot. That's an opportunity early for Impunity to start rolling over, trying to get some of those resets, some of those kills fed in to the Viego and the Jinx. But the Jinx can always pop off in the later stages of the game. The one thing I am a little concerned about is this Gnar. Again, maybe I'm oversimplifying things here. I feel like nobody but Hanabi in this league should be allowed to play it.
I have to agree with you. I feel like Gnar...
It's hard to execute.
Blind pick is just asking for trouble. There's way too many counter picks that we've seen so far. You know, people have been playing the Aurelia, and GP has always been a staple counter, at least in the PCS, because of Hanabi playing both sides of the matchup so well. So the Gnar is kind of a tricky one, and like we've said, when you're trying to play a super strong pick or reset composition, you really don't want to be limited by the windows that Gnar kind of gives you. Gnar is a champion that your entire team has to play around, and that really severely hampers the times that you can go in and just find picks here. So once again, I feel like Impunity are sort of wholly relying on mid jungle in the early to mid game. I don't see their lanes coming out ahead either in the top side or in the bottom side. So if you're thinking about tempo, if you're thinking about snowballing, it's going to have to come from Taco and Faith.
No, you're right. I think that's the place that we got to be looking. Now, on the flip side for DCG, if you are looking for Faith to start to step up and find opportunities, find openings, the same thing as well for Taco. I do think this is a relatively squishy comp. I mean, it's a little hard to gank a Rise. It's a little hard to counter jungle a Hecarim unless he does it to himself, but you can get the drop on a Gangplank. You can get the drop on a squishy bot lane like Aphelios Renata. So if Deep Cross aren't careful, they could find themselves getting snowballed on. But we're going to find out as we get onto Summoner's Rift for our first game of Week 5 here in the PCS Spring Split. Impunity hunting for a win that would be a big statement for them here as they vie for a playoff position. Deep Cross already has that locked up, looking to extend their dominance over the league.
Currently still have a 2-game cushion over Hurricane Gaming, but that's just not enough when you're thinking about the number of games that we play every week here. And going into Week 5, Taking a look at the runes here, we have a very defensive bottom side of the map. I think it's because Blaze is running with that Tom Kench, so he's just going for a little bit more sustain right here. And we do have to mention the amount of globals that could be going his way. Both the Cannon Barrage and the Realm Warp could be showing up. So Blaze trying to play this super defensive. In the meantime, we have Taco and Faith, going for the usual kind of kill combo here. And, the composition I do want to mention about is DCG's here. We talked about counter engage. I think this is absolutely perfect for them. We've talked a lot about the Renata, but also the Gangplank will accomplish the same thing. If you're trying to chase in with Blaze, you're going to have to walk through Cannon Barrage. That's proven very difficult to do. So I just feel like DCG's composition gives them a lot more opportunities to decide where they want to engage and also decide when they don't want to fight.
Yeah, and that's a huge advantage if you're a team like DCG where, if there is one weakness we have seen, it is teams that are superior at team fighting, finding ways to pick them apart. Now, we will get into the lane. Leaky actually taking a very far forward position here to deal with Quiet. So, aggressive posture to kick things off here. He's got a lot of sustain, though. Grasp of the Undying. Certainly going to help him in this lane, even if he gets poked out by the Boomerang. Do want to check in with the bot, because we've already got Blaze under fire here by Kriskata and Woody. Very pokey bottom lane. But now, turnabout's fair play. Look at that. They actually burn both the heal and Pinway's ignites, and that might force Kriskata out of lane soon.
Yeah, I feel like that was actually Kriskata going way too deep on the trade. They had a superior level 1 trade. Loyalty program goes out, you get a huge shield, so it's very strong to just trade in that at that moment. But they definitely went a little bit too deep.
Speaking of going too deep, Pinway steps a little far forward on that level 2. Doesn't have gray health yet, and Blaze is still level 1. There we go, ticks over. This is a very scrappy 2v2.
And that's why, Tom Kench is a matchup where Renata can feel relatively comfortable. Renata herself doesn't have engage, doesn't have movement speed, but she can get away from that W.
Ooh, speaking of movement speed, Taco running in as Faith had already stopped up Nest. He forces the flash out. That's a really good start for Impunity on this mid lane.
Yeah, that's where they want to snowball and spend most of their time on the map for sure. I still feel like this bottom lane, if played out usually, will not result in a Impunity win. It's so difficult to go up against the poke here coming in from Woody, and we have seen a lot of times just the handshake dealing massive damage to AD carries. It's actually very difficult to avoid it. It's a very long cooldown, but there's a lot of damage on it. If you can get it to hit another champion, you also deal the original damage to the secondary target. So it's just a situation where you're gonna have to see Pingwei and Blaze actually stay rather far apart, which kind of funnily enough is not what Tom Kench wants to do.
No, he gets yoinked in, forced to flash away here. Woody and Kriskata just peppering them with poke as DCG are taking over on 2 lanes here. This is kind of a bit of a bulge on the map right now as you see both top lane, bot lane shoving in here. And Blaze! Oh, he's out of there, flashing forward. They're going to claim 2, and the teleport comes back. This is an absolute disaster as both kills go to Kriskata and Faith. He's going to try to get something out of it. He finds Woody on the chains. Should be enough to claim a kill. So, oh no! Oh, he's going to burn away anyways. Couldn't stay alive for too much longer. That's going to be the turret getting Kriskata. You got to be pretty happy if you're DCG, though. You get out without losing a whole lot.
Yeah, and the kill distribution is perfect here as well. You see Kriskata getting double kills already. He's got the Noon Quiver, and that just means that he can shove the wave even faster with the extra damage to minions. So, as we have said, this bottom lane probably not going on so well. I feel like they kind of forgot Renata exists in the meta when going for the Tom Kench. Usually Pingwei has just been a Rakan abuser where he tries to go with the composition, but I feel like the Tom Kench was a takeaway pick, and when your takeaway pick gets counter, that means you're left with nothing. So yeah, this bottom lane is just it's gonna get really, really rough here. And I just feel like Impunity, what we're going to see is a lot of Pingwei just trying to roam across the map and at least allowing Faith to have free reign, just leading his own lane.
In Pinway's defense, I feel like we haven't seen anywhere near a good Renata in the PCS, so
that's true.
It might be a little forgettable for a while. We're starting to see the power of this champion. Let's take a look at this replay because, yeah, Blaze and Pinway are sitting ducks here, and you see this coming a mile away.
Yeah, and they were definitely not on the same page. It felt like to me that Pingwei got the memos just, okay, we have to back out. But Blaze was like, I can't give these 2 waves away. If I give these 2 waves, I'm just about dead. So it seems like there was a little bit of miscommunication as what the team wanted to do. You saw the TP just coming a bit late. And Taco was in trouble.
He's going to be able to run out on the Herald path. Hits him with the flash wolves. But we're back on bot side. Blaze getting dove again. Criscata under fire, but with a little bit of assistance from Leaky, they clean up without losing him. 4-1. Oh, I've seen this horror show before when Criscata gets fed early. This is not looking good for Impunity.
Yeah, it's just what we said. When it rains, it definitely starts to pour, and Pingwei really needs to land some of those W's, you know? If he can't find a target with those abyssal voyages, it's just it gets really, really awkward. And this is why I was a little bit confused about the pick. I thought maybe that Impunity were going to try and go for a defensive teamfight setup with the Tahm Kench, but that wasn't the draft they ended up with either. So this Tahm Kench is looking super awkward in this composition, and also in the laning phase.
Yeah, here we go again. So we're going to get to see the beginning of it. They actually do have a decent start, but unfortunately, Criscata just sidesteps a lot of what Blaze throws out. Doesn't have the Flame Chompers for defense any further. And, like, I don't really blame Pingwei for going back in because he's not going to be able to escape, but he couldn't quite get the kill because he burned Ignite earlier. It's a feels bad, man.
Yeah, and that's something we have to remember when you see a Renata in lane, is that your AD carry can trade super hard. If he gets a takedown, then he actually just doesn't die. You will get that reset back to 20% HP, and that's why you're seeing Criscata being willing to walk up that far forward and just face tank a trade, because the Renata exists.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why this champion was going to be considered so broken on release, because if you paired it with a champion that would be able to just out-duel, out-trade a little bit, you get yourself a reset on the bailout, guaranteeing that you can stick around a little longer. But it's a massive lead. It does open up a lot of map control on this bot side, meaning that first Dragon on the menu, pretty much for free here for Deep Cross between Hana and Nesty. They're going to be able to hold the line here, and Faith is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting if he wants to try and save it. Oh, dear. The Realm Warp, they see this coming, but can they stop it? Abyssal Voyage, it doesn't matter. Blaze is left for dead. The 4-man dive, and they're just bullying Impunity's bot lane.
This is very sad to see here. I think Impunity, they do have to send Faith down. Once the next teleport is up, they have to at least get a shutdown here on Criscata. It's 500 gold. If they can manage that to go over to Faith, maybe they have a chance back in the game. But right now, it's getting very dire. I think what they have to do is use this Herald mid, make sure you get a roam from Faith, and just try to pick off Criscata when they're pushing too far forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of bleeding they're going to have to stop right now. It's a massive gold differential. A lot of it sitting down in that bottom lane, just between a 5-kill lead, not to mention CS. Taco waiting to try and get a gank off down in, or up at the top. Meanwhile, it's down in the bottom. Criscata rarely left on his own, but he might still be able to get a 1v2. Look at Blaze already going down on the last hit after the Moonlight Vigil. Pingwei limping away. Oh, dear.
That was pretty genius from DCG. You could tell that Woody was already on the other side of the map. He was perfectly okay leaving Criscata here by himself, and that was an absolute correct calculation. He was 2 levels above Pingwei, and he's perfectly willing to take the fight.
Yeah, that Abyssal Voyage ain't going nowhere. Straight back to Fountain, Onslaught of Shadows. Maybe not even necessary, but they will take it. And yeah, in the words of Admiral Akbar, it's a trap. And they fell right into it. 6 kills for the Aphelios. He's going to hit 200-year status very quickly this game.
And that's when you don't see a downside of Aphelios. A lot of times Aphelios has been kind of second fiddle to Jinx because he really needs to be further ahead for his Infernum combo to feel impactful these days after so many nerfs. Right now, I think his Infernum could just burn the entire Impunity team to a crisp.
Yeah.
So
oh my
we are going to get that.
Sub 10-minute Gale Force. That's disgusting. All right, now they're going to go up to the top side. There is a Cannon Barrage cutting the rest of the wave down, so this is going to be the Herald pop. But Hana and Leaky are here. Taco's actually caught out, forced to flash away. Even the dive ends up going not the way Impunity wanted it to. And Nesty's here as well. Oh, man. Nothing is going right for Impunity in this early game.
Yeah, the bot lane hole is just way too big. in these trades so far. And small correction there, that was just the Heart Seeker from Taco, so you can still have that flash to try and chain something up with Faith. But it's looking definitely very dire, and I don't really agree with the Herald drop into the top lane. I feel like you have to get Faith out of lane at this point in order to do something on the map. If you look at the current lane allocation, they're so far pushed into their own side. There's absolutely no chance for Faith to come up here undetected. I just think that they need to get a Hail Mary play, say like, okay, we're willing to give up mid lane tower or like all of the plays on the mid lane tower in order to get a shutdown. That's the only path they have.
Yeah, and it's just gotten so out of hand so fast. We haven't really been able to track what's been going on with a couple of the other players on the Impunity side. Faith has had a relatively quiet game, burns TP to get back into mid, and DCG rotate their bot side to the top. They're going to get even more plates out here because this is one of those games where you just run away with it. With how important AD carries are, you can see how much confidence Chris Scott is playing with right now. 1v2 shoving in, and he's doing it without any answer. I dare say he's doing it with impunity.
Good pun right there. If you look at the player gold, there's a good reason for that. He's 3,100 gold above Blaze. Actually make that a full mythic item. I'm sorry. Just when I was looking at that graph, the gold shot up even more, and he's just a full mythic item ahead.
Yeah, this is stonks. This is like full stonks right now for Criscata. Yeah, it's going to be a rough ride here for Impunity to get back into this game. We've talked about how this team has been, especially compared to their previous iteration, looked so much more together. This roster has been a lot better on the map as a whole. The problem is they've just been overwhelmed. I mean, this is like a full Zerg rush of a game, and Deep Cross have just not had the answer. Now Blaze trying to get some free farm. I mean, he's 2 levels down on Hana. He knows he's a dead man, spending that 8 PM just to go ahead and hit the emote because there's nothing he can do. Hana's quietly been amassing the kills as well.
Yeah, this is trying to claw back from like a 5 pull into 6 lane kind of build, just like super hard StarCraft early game cheese build. And I just feel like Impunity, it's kind of unfortunate to say they are in a huge hole, but they aren't playing risky enough to actually get out of it.
Yeah, that's the hard part right here. Pinway going to get cut through, and Faith does dish some damage off the electrocute combo, but it's not enough. Now, will Taco be able to help find an answer? Hana taking a lot of damage. That is going to be the intercept of the rocket. Hana still stays alive. They're just so far behind now, it's going to be difficult to find an answer. But Faith needs to be the one getting a couple of picks where he can. It's just so hard to see where he's going to be able to do it. I kind of worry if he'd be able to solo Criscata at this point.
Well, I want to mention the silver lining of this game. It's that there are now 2 really fed members on the enemy team, and killing either one of them will cause Faith to at least get his mythic item.
Hey, gold bounty is worth something.
Yeah, exactly. It's still not there yet, even if he does find the kills. But you know, he has one more extra target where he could legitimately snowball himself off of.
So you're saying there's a chance, Clement, and there always is, right? It's early enough in the game. You know, the way the game has been changed, there is a lot of gold in not just kill bounties, also objective bounties. You can always get back into this one. And I think the key is for Impunity not to let their mental drop off, right? They're starting to pick up mythics. We do see Quiet going for the whole breaker build, so, you know, he's going to be sitting on side lanes. I think, honestly, you're not going to take a 5v5 anyways. I think this makes sense. The question is, can he outpush the Gangplank, who's been on a Triforce for a few minutes? I think that's going to be a hard one to answer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's kind of the big question left in the bank is, you know, can he actually get any split pushing done? My gut probably tells me no, and it's very hard to split push when Hecarim is also fed. Yeah,
also
that
true.
too.
Yeah, Blaze, I mean, it's a respect flash, right? You get hit with that Moonlight Vigil, you are dead. There's a 2-level advantage. Mythic's still not picked up for the Impunity bot laner. Although we do note that Faith has got his. And Leaky's caught here. Burns the flash, and he is going to be able to walk away. Also wait in orange, so it's K. But yeah, at least it buys you an opportunity to get your push on bot side. I think this is important here.
That was a really nice move here. Impunity with the vision. They know that there's, you know, the rise just isn't there yet. So they're willing to go into the bottom side jungle, set up a trap here. I'd be very surprised if Faith... Okay, like, Faith knew that he was there, so it should be okay on the side here from Impunity. Just talking about comebacks, I feel like DCG had the biggest comeback of the PCS split against Beyond Gaming last time. So I think that match alone gives everyone in the PCS hope that even if you lose your inhibitor at 18 minutes, you can still come back and win a game.
Yeah, and you know, like, around the world we've seen some crazy comebacks, right? I mean, like, anyone who's watched G2 Misfits knows anything, literally anything, is possible in League of Legends. Now, Faith, unfortunately, is down, and Cryscata gets a godlike kill at 16. Oh, they'll be hoping for a miracle on the side of Impunity, because Shelly comes charging with the squad, and they just do not let up for a moment.
I love how that ability is called Handshake when the victim literally does not have any choice in it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Rana Glass runs businesses very aggressively, you know, like the ultimate, like, gatekeep, gaslight girl boss. You gotta be careful dealing with Glass Industries, I think.
Yeah, she's definitely a proponent of the free market. Just so free that you're also willing to use violence as well. That's kind of the difference from traditional liberalism, is that you can do really anything in the market.
I mean, we all watched Arcane. We know how that economy works.
It's a very interesting economy. I'm actually just surprised that anyone can stay alive in Zwan, given the amount of like industrial accidents that they have and the condition of the environment down there. It's a pretty nasty place to live.
No, for sure. It's you know, anyone who looks at the cyberpunk style and is like, yeah, that's for me. It's like, maybe you want to rethink that. Oh, Leaky, he is caught. Now, I don't know if there's any escape this time. Doesn't drop the cannon barrage. He knows he's dead. And that was a good opening there. That does feed the kill into Taco, who is one of those reset-dependent champions. Every little bit counts here, Clement. That's the second kill of the game. They've just doubled their kill score.
Yeah, I think most importantly is that they do stop the wave from crashing down in the bottom side. If you have a top side that's completely open, then it just does mean that the enemy team usually will play towards this bottom side, especially when Drake is still on the map. So, you know, getting a chance to shove that wave in does take a lot of pressure off of them, especially when the Drake is also coming up this closely. So, huge pick right there. They get the kill onto Taco and Faith combo, which is incredibly important. And now we have to see if they can actually utilize it in any meaningful way. DCG, though, this is just so smart. They're just sticking together. They're not going to give you any more chances to pick anyone, especially Cryscata.
And we know how good the counter engage is. And unfortunately, you can't stop that tower demolition. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is if this game keeps going on, you've got, you know, Mountain Soul to contend with. That's going to make it even harder to defend against this push. 18 minutes in. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Impunity. They're having trouble just getting through their own jungle. You got to be careful here. Quiet and Meganar already, so he's not going to get that pop-off surprise. But clearing the waves, they've been effective at it. It's just, unfortunately, they can't take any fights at the moment. They have to try to play from a defensive standpoint. Kraken Slayer is finally picked up for Blaze. So, you know, we're looking at the full Mythic sweeps outside of Pinway, of course, and it's an opportunity to get back into this game, but you've got to stop these towers from falling, and that is so hard to do right now with the way Deep Cross are playing.
Yeah, even with the prior push, they're not able to dislodge DCG. Oh, they find an opening on Cryscata?
They do. Don't get enough damage, though, and maybe Hana's going to be the one to fall as Taco finds a little bit of damage here, but he's stepping a little too far forward. You can't let yourself get caught out of position. Faith, he's just looking around the side. Unfortunately, Pinway does get caught. Great help is on. Can he stay alive? And no, he cannot. But Nesty, even though he opens up on one, gets two down the Viego. It looked like for just a second they might be able to
they're going in.
But it's going to be the party portal into the backside. Oh, that is going to be Blaze splitting the uprights on the Super Mega Death Rocket, and it's Deep Cross Gaming deep into the base. They're playing with a lot of confidence here. They may have lost Woody, but they still have a 4-2 advantage. Looking to end this here. Faith, he's trying to go out in a blaze of glory, but Cryscata is going to grant his request. Pinway comes back up. Blaze still hanging on, and that won't be the end of the game just yet, Clement. We will not have a record setter today.
Oh, yeah, I would have loved to see DCG be able to just spin that into a full win, but it's still very early on in the map right here, and I kind of thought that they would have just gone for the Mountain Drake, so I do expect Impunity to try and beeline and at least see if they can contest that, but it looks like they're just too far behind in the waves. That was a little bit of an over-aggressive mood in my mind from DCG, like they could have played just to the mountain win condition, but I guess they're not going to lose anything for it, so you might as well just go for both. And wait a minute, actually Impunity's rushing for Baron. We have to take a look at this fight first. It was relatively messy, if I'm being completely honest. Woody, dies first, and Hana misses everything, but they're just so far ahead that it doesn't really matter. As long as Cryscata gets the damage in, they're fine here. And yeah, Impunity, that was probably a little bit too high.
Just a bit, but they do manage to bait Nesty. Unfortunately, they don't have the damage to take down the tank Rise, and the hostile takeover, you can run away from it for the most part. Pinway gets clipped on the end, but meanwhile, Leaky flashes over, takes out Faith on a 2-hit combo, and Impunity running for the hills. Oh no, Quiet, he's got absolutely nowhere to go, Clement. Just throw the boomerang out, stick a fork in him, because he is done.
It does seem like Impunity just committed suicide by Baron. There was no way they were going to take that objective with Blaze being in the base. I'm not really sure why they went for it. Like, if they beeline rush for Drake, I could understand that. It would give them a chance to prolong the game and prolong the Mountain Soul from going over. But I just feel like going for Baron was definitely a bridge too far.
Yeah, I agree. It's a little bit tough to see. I think they're trying to make a play, but clearly you can see that the team decision-making is just all over the place at the moment. They are going together, and I give them credit for that, but at the end of the day, you have to play almost perfectly to get back into this one, and Impunity clearly are not. So, with Baron in tow, Taco caught out a little bit, and he's looking to get run down, but manages to step just out of the danger zone of Hana. And DCG just own the map here as Impunity are looking for any opportunity to snipe a kill back, but Faith just doesn't have enough damage to do it. Not against this incredibly fed squad. There's gold bounties on just about everyone right now. But Deep Cross are going to make it very difficult to claim.
The most important thing for Impunity is to keep their dignity intact. We have to get a kill on Cryscata. Let's go.
Okay, stiff arm there. Blaze going to go down. No, he's not swallowed up by Pinway, but I think the Tahm Kench will be. Finally followed through, and with that, the damage is done. And I don't think there's any coming back from this one. It may not be a record setter, but it's looking damn close as Deep Cross Gaming cements their dominance in the top of the bracket. 22.5-minute win over Impunity.
Oh, what a tough way to go out in this game, and I do think a lot of it did just come from the early takeaway pick of the Tahm Kench. I understand that Impunity might have thought, oh, Tahm Kench has been a counter to our strategy of just rushing at people, so they wanted to take away the pick, but they just kind of forgot about the Renata. It's great in lane against Tahm Kench. It really penalizes you from trying to get your Keystone rune activated. If you're trying to get Guardian off, that usually means a really good handshake from Renata as well.
Oh, yeah.
So it looked very awkward, and I think this game is a perfect showcase of what can go wrong with going for takeaway picks. If your takeaway pick doesn't actually take away the enemy strategy and even itself becomes a countered pick, then you can see things like this happening and just a complete snowball coming from the bottom side.
Yeah, Impunity, we saw them try to play out their comp, but it did feel like it kind of was a bit of a mismatch once the Tahm Kench came into play, and unfortunately it just wasn't enough to get anything done. The snowball got out of control very quickly, and I think Renata Glass puts a whole new spin on the Jinx Aphelios handshake, quite literally, Clement. That was... Woody didn't have to do all that much, to be honest, but he did a great job setting up his AD carry for success, and Cryscata, I mean... give him a little bit of gold, and he's going to show you why he's one of the hottest rookies in the PCS this split.
We saw so many things from this Renata pick. This is a great showcase for her. A couple of things that we notice is just how aggressive you can play with a fed carry when you have a Renata. If you have the bailout, there's a very high chance someone that's over 5 kills is going to be able to get a reset and just continue on. And another thing is just the use of the ultimate there. A lot of times when we saw Impunity trying to go in these tight corridors or into objectives, then you just cast the ultimate out and everyone just has to scatter. Like, you can't stay there, and it forces you to think about whether you're going to commit into those tight corners. So I just think Woody has been kind of on the forefront, and not surprisingly DCG overall has been on the forefront of utilizing this really special.
Absolutely. I think they have been the squad that has shown some of the most interesting champion picks that have also worked out on the whole. I mean, this was the team that came into the split playing the Enchanter top, playing the Bard Smite for Nesty, and we thought maybe this was just a Nesty thing, but it turns out that they have a whole lot of tricks up their sleeve. I mean, Cryscata had a Heimerdinger game so far. It was just... like it's just so great to see how many different things this team can play. I think having a lot of champion diversity and effective champion diversity really shakes things up, and it was just a crushing, a dominating victory on the side of Deep Cross. They were all together, they knew what they needed to do, and they shut down that bot lane hard.
Yeah, DCG, this game was just absolutely beautiful in terms of their draft. They countered the laning phase, they countered the team composition, and this is kind of the issue if you are sort of a mono-track team. If you're only going one way, then the enemy can make a lot of assumptions in their drafts, and oftentimes just come out correct and not even get punished for it. So I think Impunity, if they still want to run this sort of a tempo comp, they need at least one lane that is guaranteed a hard win. No surprises here. Of course, Cascada is going to get the MVP. 10-1-4 in the laning
I want to
phase.
point something out. He only died to a turret, and that was just
true.
to deny Faith from getting the kill because he knew he wasn't getting out of that on the teleport. Yeah, almost flawless performance from Cascada. He had a great setup from his support from the rest of his team. Clearly, Deep Cross know that their rookie bot laner is a powerhouse, and they play to their strengths.
Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy what he's been able to do in this game, and I think a lot of people have to be thinking about DCG in multiple avenues right now. I think they used to just think, okay, if we take over mid jungle, then maybe things will sort itself out. Right now, Leaky and Cascada are probably the two hottest laners in the league as well, and that just makes the DCG puzzle that much more difficult to unravel, as we have seen right now. The only teams that have taken them down, PSG and CFO. So we'll see if we will find out if a third one can accomplish the same feat.
I'm really excited because I think there's a very real possibility that Deep Cross are going to end up as our MSI representatives. We'll see, though, and we have a lot more games to play when we return. CTBC Flying Oyster take on Hurricane. Don't go anywhere.